Hello and welcome to Audionautic Deep Space Network, episode 99. This is the Independent Musician's Guide to Production and Promotion. Today we've got a ton to talk about with our recent trip to NAMM, the just announced MPC Key 37, and a lot of changes happening at TikTok. Will it change the social media landscape as we know it? I don't know. Let's talk about it. It gets pretty crazy. Thanks everyone who's joining us live, and much love to all of our patrons who help support what we do. We've got quite the chat already. Just want to bring up Abby's in the chat. How are you doing? Smiling Errors is here. We've got Curtis doing double duty. We also have Shady Ridge. Hello. Pat is in the chat. Welcome everybody. Let us know what you've been up to. If you were checking out all the NAMM coverage that was happening, let us know what caught your eye. We're going to share what caught ours, and I actually got to go as Audionautic and Sunwarper, so I got to check out a lot of stuff. So we're going to talk all about that. Oh, and sorry, SC. Last but not least, certainly not least, SC is in the chat, Survey Channel, and Eon Lake. So we got everybody. We got everybody. So my name is Sunwarper. With me today is Eon Lake, Eon Lake, and Curtis.
Yeah, we're here. Hello. It's been, we're all out of practice, we're all out of sync. We have had some technical difficulties off the bat after taking a week off last week. But hey, we're here, inching closer to that 100th episode. We're basically Joe Rogan at this point, if you think about it in that regard. But with synthesizers as opposed to
That's scary.
I know, right? Very scary. Thank you ever so much for joining us. We've got a lot to get through. Our docket is full. I think our docket is 5 pages today, so we've got a lot to get through. That's insane. A lot of gear with lots of technical capabilities. So let's get into it, because yes, Sunwarper, you did manage to get to go to NAMM, up the road for you. A slight different, what is it? Like a 10-minute drive for you, 45-minute drive.
It came to you.
Yeah, it came to me, just me specifically. They were very kind this year. No, I think it's every year. I'm in Orange County, California, which is right next to Los Angeles, and I'm in the city of Orange, and it's in Anaheim, but they're like right next to each other. So it's at the Anaheim Convention Center, which I think is about 5 or 10 minutes away from me. I mean, it was like a quick hop. Unfortunately, I only got to go Saturday and Sunday, and then right afterwards, I got really, really sick. So that was fun, but you know, it's okay. It was worth it. It was well worth it. There was a lot going on there.
That figures.
Well, thanks for covering that for us.
That's our coverage. That's all we got.
Good night, people. We'll
Good to know. More information from next year's NAMM.
No, the reason I have to take pauses is my throat is still a bit sore. I'm still coughing, so I'm going to be riding the mute today. But yeah, I'll need some fill in the gaps here, because I might have to cough or just take a breather, because today's the first day I could speak. I mean, it was good timing, but like it was the first day I could speak since that. So it was quite the event. But yeah, tons of gear there. I checked out a lot. We'll talk about some of my favorite software and a few pieces of hardware today. And then tomorrow on my channel, I've got a video where where I'm checking out some of my favorite hardware. And then I also recorded a bunch of samples of just people performing things just all over the event. There's people playing. There was one spot, a guy was playing a Hammond organ with a drummer. So I sampled that and a couple other things, put it on the SP404 and made a beat. So tomorrow's video will be full of my favorites and then sampling some stuff. So we've got a lot of coverage between the two channels, but dude, it was crazy. I got to check out some really cool plugins, some great hardware, and then there were some demos. Like SoundToys did a demo. I'll show a little bit of that in a minute. But yeah, I think, Curtis, you put something that I didn't get to check out. Do you want to throw it in there, or did you take it out?
I took it out and put it in for next week, because in the run for the show, I didn't do enough research for it. So, and we've got a lot to cover, so I went with that.
Okay.
So why don't we start with the SoundToys? What you got there?
Yeah. So this convention center is huge. There's multiple just giant buildings. There's the main building that's just ginormous. And there's just, as soon as you walk up the escalator, there's just booths of like all kinds of guitars, synths, all that. So the first day I checked out that place, not even realizing there was a second building. And then as I was leaving that day, I saw the map and was like, wait, SoundToys is here? So is all these other plugin companies, Waves, all this stuff. Even FL Studio was there, all in the other building. So I made it a point the next day. My first stop was to go to this other building all the way on the other side of the convention center. So Soundtoys had a cool booth, and it was like perfect timing because when I got there, they were doing a demo and they were talking about creating rhythms using their effects. So the part I'm about to play, the person demoing it just put white noise, like just constant white noise as the main source, and then used, I think it was Tremolator and Filter Freak to create hi-hats, like a percussive hi-hat loop.
Nice.
Just live, like not sequenced, no MIDI, nothing. So let me find the video. And it's not a long video. It was just really short, but it'll show you kind of what the demo.
For my open hi-hat, I'm using the analog mode to push it really hard and compress it so it's got a little more of a percussive edge to it. But then I'm also pumping it into Filter Freak to do my on and off like I had on the wave pad, and it's also getting pumped.
Yeah. So really quick, just wanted to show a little bit. Those hi-hats you heard, that was just white noise. And then he also showed if you don't have a white noise source, you can take Little Radiator or Radiator. There's the two different versions, and just turn on that white noise at the start of the plugin chain. And then if you use Tremolator and all that stuff, you can get those hi-hats. So that was really cool. Ian, like you do a lot of crazy stuff with drums. Have you ever tried something like this? I know we all love Soundtoys, so with them or with anybody.
Yeah, because I've got white and pink noise and various other colors of noise on the synthesizers here, so it's easy to plug them in with some modular stuff. And I was last trying it with the No Coast actually, because it's got a low pass gate. It can be a little bit snappier than an ADSR envelope, and I was getting some good pingy hi-hat sounds. I mean, everyone knows you can sculpt them out of white noise, but some sound better than others, basically. And that sounded more hi-hatty. Speaking as a drummer, that's a
more hi-hatty.
I should probably explain that. That's a technical drumming term. Hi-hatty is something that's like a hi-hat.
Well, thank you for clarifying that. Yeah. I really want to give this a shot. Maybe we can cover it in the show sometime. Chat, let us know if you're interested in seeing what they were doing. We can kind of show it. But I just really like that they created it without any sort of MIDI. No, like, oh, I'm going to take this and throw it on the, into Ableton or Logic and move it and create the hi-hat. They literally just took white noise, took an effect, a tremolator, set the rhythmic form, and it just made the hi-hats. And he was showing, I mean, a lot of their plugins have sort of rhythm generators. Like Echo Boy has one setting that you can set all these different rhythms and things like that. Not Eon Lake, sorry. Curtis, have you given this a shot at all?
I haven't. No, I like to do other things. I haven't. This is actually something that intrigued me because I've never actually seen it been done before. So I'd be curious to kind of make that work. Because I mean, what better way to create a hi-hat sound than from something that isn't a hi-hat, essentially? In a world of samples, in a world where every hi-hat sounds the same, if you just get some noise and then chop it up in your own way, that sounds like a really fun way of doing things.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one thing I've done with DAW stuff is like on the Digitech, I took Rain and then created hi-hats out of that by using the slices and but it was taking something that was already percussive and just slicing it up and doing some modulation to it. This is taking just a literal static sound and creating percussion through the effects. It just seems, as someone who's very lazy sometimes, it seems like it'd be a nice way to just get a hi-hat going and not have to worry about it, set it and forget it. They showed a lot more effects and stuff, but that was just a little taste I wanted to show. I mean, we all love Soundtoys here. They also showed a bit with the new, what's that, Super Plate, is it? The big brother of Little Plate? Yeah, they showed some of that and all that. And I think they had chocolates out as well. So that was cool if you wanted chocolates. The next one, another plugin. I've never heard of this company, but I think they've been around for quite a while. And I sat with the person demoing for a while to show me all these different plugins. But my favorite of them, the company's called Zynaptiq. And my favorite of them was this massive, you could probably guess where I'm going, massive reverb and delay called Adaptiverb. And what I loved about this was kind of like Valhalla Supermassive on steroids. So you could control EQs, you could do all kinds of they had this thing, it was like a harmonic filter, so it would find what was the proper sounds of the reverb and just take out everything else. And you could do it on a scale, and you could even invert it so that it put all the stuff that you don't want, it would actually put that all out there. But they got some crazy sounds out of it. This is the plugin Adaptive Verb. It's $150. But there's a lot you can do. So if you look on the right side of that, like XY, that's where the harmonic filtering and all that stuff is. So that was what I really liked. It kind of changes the reverb from sounding natural and things like that, but it would make it sit better in the mix, and then you could control the dry wet of that filtering and things like that. And I mean, he took this no velocity, no all quantized piano sound and added this, and it just became this lush soundscape, like perfect for ambient. And then by bringing up that harmonic filtering, it reined it in to fit like a normal, not normal, but like a beat driven track and things like that. So we all love our lush, long-tailed reverbs, and this kind of, what I liked about this was this is a way to take that and still get it to fit, if you want it to fit nicely in songs and things like that. Yeah, like, have you heard of this plugin before?
No, but I'm interested in the harmonic part of it because I'm often either EQing into or out of reverbs to try and get certain tones, and also changing. I find the size of the reverb and the pitch of what you're putting into it, you know, can bring out certain tones, and tweaking the size of it so that it fits the sort of pitch you're at is something that I do a lot as well. And I get the impression it's keying into something like that, but a bit more musically. So color me interested.
Yeah,
it's a little bit pricey, but hopefully they do sales like everyone else.
Yeah, they had another plugin, and I can't remember the name of it, but it did some sort of like reverse comb filtering or something, where they took really bad audio and used it, and it would bring up in an interesting way all of the high end, and so it would actually start to sound normal again. It was really trippy. I'll have to find the name and put it, but it was like magic what it was doing, but it was really cool. Some of these plugins they had were really cool, and I had him demo the Adaptive Verb twice because I came during the first demo with some other people, and then he showed a couple other plugins, and I was like, do you mind showing Adaptive Verb again? So I got to catch the whole demo, and yeah, I was sold on that plugin. It looked really cool. Next up, this one I know is on Curtis's top of the list. I saw Teenage Engineering were there, and so that was one of the first places I went to because I wanted to see if I could get my hands on the EP133, and they had multiple little arcade booths, just like an old school arcade where the EP133 was there, and then they had some guides, like little directions and stuff. Really cool. The issue was there were no headphones, and it was really noisy right there, and there were multiple of these. So yeah, you had to kind of just deal with it. So I messed around with the loop and things like that. Here's the EP133. Cool little sampler. I liked it. I was hoping the knowledge of the PO33 would kind of translate over a little more than I felt like it did. It didn't really translate much as someone who owns a PO33. This is a lot more intricate. But yeah, I think it's a really cool sampler. I would need more time with it to really make a judgment call on it. But if you don't have a sampler or you're looking to get one, this does seem like a really cool way. And it was quick to just start getting a jam going on it and stuff like that. So I was appreciative of that. Curtis, are you still eyeing this one?
I am, yeah. I still can't. I've decided it's time to get a sampler, whether I go for this or the SP. I'm still like on a daily basis to and fro. I'm an iron, and you've got in my head a little bit because you're right. A little bit more, you get an SP404, which does have a lot more to it, and it's also got like a cab sim and stuff like that in there, which is always good. But this is really sleek and this is really nice. And yes, it's doesn't have as much sample memory time, but also it just I'm snapping, literally the snappability, the ability just to get going, like you say, it seems really intricate and it intrigues me. I've always liked Teenage Engineering.
Yeah, and I did want to mention I have pictures of the booths. That'll all be in my video tomorrow. But one thing that really caught my eye was right above the actual EP133 there was a little text that said EP series.
Ooh.
So that caught my eye because I was like, does this mean they're going to be updating other pocket operators into this EP line? I hope so, because I'd love to see all of those. It's nice to see those getting an update because yeah, like Smiling Earth says, did they bring their desks? Yeah, because Teenage Engineering has a interesting amount of stuff in their catalog, shall we say.
Yeah.
Just Do It is in the chat, says, a live stream, a synth live stream where I could complain about Akai being boring. Yeah, well, we'll get to Akai later. We got to go through all of NAMM first. But they also added the KO might get better in the future as they're only using one of the 2 cores in it. Yeah, let's hope. They also added the voice stealing is killing it now, though. Yeah, how many voices is it? Is it 6 stereo, 12 monophonic or something like that, right? I think.
It's something like that, isn't it?
Yeah,
Could
something
do
like
with a
that.
little more polyphony, really, couldn't it?
Yeah, and I would like to see resampling. That's the killer for me is the lack of resample. Yeah, I'd really like to see resample. I mean, that's me personally. I can already do it with the SP. So if you have like an SP,
these limitations, isn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting. I thought it was a lot of fun though. I love the look of it. Seems really cool. The price is pretty good for what it is and all that. So yeah, I thought it was really interesting. I was just happy to get my hands on it and really actually see what it's like coming from the PO33. It's definitely a lot bigger than the PO33, but still pretty compact. Ross says just buy 2 to resample. Yeah, if you've got that, or
it's like Dex, then, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just get an 8 slider.
Next up, there was a lot of really cool guitar pedals, which obviously can be used with synths and things like that. Boss was there. I was hoping Roland would be there with stuff from the SP and stuff, but they were not. But Boss was there. Who else was there? Electro Harmonics. But I found some smaller brands. There was this Taiwanese company called Maker I just had to shut. I don't know. There. Let's go. There we go. Sorry about that. Keep playing, but these were really cool pedals. They had some awesome art design, but after the event, I tried to find them because they gave me a QR code. They gave me all this, and it takes you to this website. It's an offshoot of the Maker Heart website, but there's nowhere to buy them. It just shows them. It doesn't say coming soon, nothing like that. So I was really impressed with the sound of the pedals, but I couldn't find them anywhere to buy. I looked online and all that. So I'm going to email the company because I'd like to learn more about it. So if I find out more, I'll let you know. But we're always looking for interesting pedals to use in our setups and stuff. I really loved the reverb from them, and the chorus. While it was a chorus, it got crazy. Like, I think the settings were kind of maxed, but I really liked when you put the chorus with the overdrive and the reverb, you just got this crazy lush, just like landscape sound. I like that. Yeah. Just Do It says, what about the new Zoom pedals? I hope they're hackable as the previous models. They were there. I didn't get to check them out much because I saw them in that other building on the second day, but I was running short on time, so I just looked at them real quick. But they looked interesting. Yeah. And then lastly, KORG. KORG had so much at the booth. I think they won Best of Show as well, but they had so many synths out. They had I think they're either remaking or they had an old model of the PS 3300, which Eon, like, that's the one Cherry Audio just did, right?
Yeah, you did that one, yeah.
Yeah, so that thing, it was in a glass booth, so I couldn't actually like check it out. I got a picture, but it came out terrible because of the reflections and stuff. But that looked cool. But they had a ton of different synths out. The NTS1 Mark II was there, and the first day I was there, I got absorbed into the OP6 Mark II, and so I didn't get to check out the NTS1. I was like, I better go check out what else is on the floor. So I came back the next day to check it out, and it was gone. There was just an empty slot at the KORG booth where the NTS1 was supposed to be. So nothing yet to report on that. I checked out, like I said, the OP6 Mark II, which is that what you have queued up there, Curtis?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, here we go. This thing. So the one they had out was not the synth one. It was the desktop version, but I don't know. I guess the FM bug bit me or something, because that just sounded so good. I checked out the ASM Hydra synth as well. Both of these, like, they're just so much in terms of like sound options and sound design and all that stuff. It was a lot of fun. I had to, like I said, pry myself from the OP6 because I just was on it, just jamming around for a really long time. And then I also checked out, I don't know if you can grab a quick picture of it. I'll remove this, but the Chaos Replay, Curtis, do you mind seeing if you can pull it up real quick? I checked out, they had it on display, the KORG Chaos Replay, which we covered a couple weeks ago that was kind of for a little while being labeled the SP404 killer and all that stuff. And I checked it out. It was there. That's it right there. Thanks, Curtis, for pulling it up. It didn't do it for me. It's not it for me. There's a lot going on, and it wasn't very immediate. It's kind of like figuring out who's its market, in my opinion, because I think it's built much more for DJs, considering the Chaos pad on it. The effects were awesome, and having the XY was a lot of fun. But to do any sort of like creating a beat or messing around with the sounds and stuff, it just didn't really work for me. Now, I'm sure somebody has it that, you know, there's people that have it and love it, but I think also it's a show floor. It's very busy. There's a lot going on. So that's probably something you need some time with, but I don't know. It looks interesting. It just doesn't seem like it's for me. I'm curious if either of you, Curtis or Eon Lake, still have your eye on this at all, or, you know, what you think about it.
Not really, but looking at it, I think, you know, it's the phono in and outs, I think, are a bit of a dead giveaway. And also, you see where it is in the hierarchy of their menu on the website. It's under DJ, and it's got phono plugs on it, not full size jacks or balanced out in and out. And I'm wondering if it's more, you know, a mixture of a Chaos pad and the ability to sample, you know, and loop bits that you're playing to help you with DJing and stuff like that, and less sort of like a hardcore production sampler and sequencer and so on, or something brain of a toolless rig. Or
I want to say even that it doesn't even have a sequencer or something, from what I recall. I don't know, there was something weird I remember when it came out, that it was like something fundamental that seemed like it was missing. Maybe it's changed in a patch or something, but yeah, it, as Just Do It says, it definitely felt like a DJ design, but with all those pads and stuff, it seems like it could be a lot more than that. And it was just a little disappointing that, like, I couldn't even, it was just strange, you know, like I guess I wanted it to be kind of more like the SP, and it just isn't that, but it's a very similar quality. It seems kind of like even subconsciously that's what kind of going for in terms of like when you see it, you know, like, oh, something like that. And
maybe if you're some sort of creative genius, you can find a weird way of using it that doesn't involve playing air horn samples in between tracks.
Yeah, a couple bits of chat before we move on. Oh, actually, Curtis, I want to hear your take on the Chaos though, but I think this is with regard to the OP6. You can correct me, but Ross says looks nice. Survey Channel says give me that thing. Yeah, I was really impressed with it, and I think, Eon, like you said, it's only like $500 or $600.
Well, the list price on the website there was more like 700.
Oh, okay, 700.
But I think it's cheaper. I think it's available a fair bit cheaper than that.
Yeah, I've been looking for a sort of FM, more pad and just deep sound design piece for the DAW-less setup, like something that can do a lot of variation. And those FM synths definitely seemed right up there for me. The Hydrasynth and the OP6, both of them. Just Do It asks, do you like Oberheim? If so, next question, OBX8 or the Sheer Electronic Sheer? We love Oberheim, but they're a bit out of at least my price range at the moment. But yeah, like, do you have an opinion on this question?
I don't really have a need for a high-end analog polysynth. I think I would be going digital, and have done, you know, with the things that I've had recently, or just plugins really. I tend to go hardware and analog more for monosynths really. Because I mean, they just get so expensive. If you look at the Moog 1 and you look at the flagship Oberheim, I mean, they sound amazing, but you know, they're like £2,000 or something. You know,
yeah,
it should. You know, it's a professional tool for serious individuals. So yeah, I mean, I like them, but it's not. I don't really have an either or sort of opinion, because I don't really consider any of them seriously. If I really, really, really wanted one and I saved my money for a long time, yeah, I could, but I would never do that. I'd spend it on something else.
Yeah. Curtis, what's your take on all this? That question, the Chaos replay, all that.
Well, in a similar vein to Eon Lake about the Oberheim, it's if I had 2K, I'd spend it elsewhere. I think, yes, you can buy a really nice analog synth, or you could spend that money more wisely. It's like, for me at least, I just think, yeah, it's not really for me. The same with the Chaos Replay, built for DJs, and it is. I think you're right. I think it kind of doesn't know really what it wants to be, and
Yeah.
it rushed out towards the end of the year, just before Christmas, and they were like, "Yeah, sure, have a box with pads." I mean, like, why?
Also $1,000.
Yeah, and I think I do think it is cool little effects box. Like, if you've got a DAW setup and you're running everything and using it as an effects box, I do think it'd be really cool. Like, John Hopkins has a couple of like traditional Chaos pads in his setup, for example, and that's how he generates
four, I
lots of
think.
effects. Has he got 4?
I think so, yeah. At
Okay,
least
well, there you
3.
go. There you go. And that's kind of where you see it. And yeah, it's not. I wouldn't call it a sampler, and I would. If someone gave it to me, if we were in this world where, companies were sending us gear, I'd be happy to receive one and play around with it. But I'm not going to put my money on it just yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to mess around with one and see what I could do with it. But yeah, and until I'd done that, I wouldn't be considering buying one.
Exactly. I mean, there is MIDI involved. So, like, I like the idea of sending like a MIDI device out to it and then back in. That intrigues me a little bit. I think someone said it in the chat. But I think that, yeah, that's what I would do with it. But again, it's the experimentation. Where would it lie? But if I've got $1,000, I'm gonna go buy something else.
You could get 2 SPs.
You could get 2 SPs, then you could resample them on each.
Well, you could get an SP and an EP133 and an NTS one all and still probably be under 1,000. Yeah.
That's fair. I mean, I was more recently. I know we're going to talk about Akai in a moment, but the Akai, like a high-end synthesizer, high-end sampler from Akai would be quite nice. An MPC one or something like that. I'd spend 1,000 on that quite nicely in that regard. So before a Chaos, I think.
Yeah, I get that. I'm trying to think what else. There was so much at this event. I mean, my favorite part was just kind of getting to jam on all these synths. I got to check out, is it the Modal Cobalt 8 Eon Lake?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to check that out. That one was a lot of fun.
That's what over there. Yeah.
Yeah, that one was a lot of fun. They had some, I mean, there's just so much going on.
On it. I was surprised with that, actually, because it's not an expensive synth by any means, but the keyboard's really nice. It's the best one.
Yeah. Oh, that's the other one. Right next to Modal was the Waldorf. I got to play the Iridium. That thing was just mind blowing. I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing. I just went for the filters on that. But no, that thing sounded really cool. I really liked the Modal. It was interesting. It had a really cool sound. I'd love to check more out about them. Hydrasynth was awesome. And then I'll talk about it in the video tomorrow, but there was a synth company I'd not heard of yet called PWM, and those synths were a lot of fun. They had 2 there, and I'll talk about those in my video tomorrow, but because we have to move on to the next topic. I know we all want to talk about MPC, but yeah, I think those were probably my favorites, the Mantis and the Malevolent, if you want to Google it. But the Malevolent that thing's crazy. A little monophonic, but super dirty sounding synth. Really enjoyed that. Yeah, anything else you guys want to talk about NAMM before we move on?
No, I'm just wondering if the PWMs have pulse width modulation on them.
That's I asked. I was like, oh, is it because it's a square wave? Like, is it pulse? And they were like, no, it's the maker. His name's Paul something, and I think like Paul something music or something. And I was like, oh, okay. But it definitely had square waves and pulse width and all that. But I was like, oh, that's a great name. It must be square wave. Right? No, that's the creator's name. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
Exciting, but it works. That's always nice. Well, in that regard, then, talking of things that are always nice, if you've been enjoying the show, this show is brought to us by our patrons. So thank you ever so much for doing that, and thank you ever so much for your continued support. If you are watching this, if you're listening to this either live or recorded or whatever, and you have not become a patron and you want to support us, this is the best way in which you can do it. So ever so much, thank you. So, like for example, we're going through NAMM now. NAMM was about 2 weeks ago. While Sunwarper was over at NAMM, he was sending us photos into the Discord, which was a lot of fun to see how things go. So yeah, pledges start at $2, and for that, there's the patron chat. There's Star Stream, which is our monthly hangout, which we had last Sunday. It's a lot of fun, and it is a great way to help us and expand, because we are expanding quite considerably, and that is thanks to the support of our existing patrons. Someone, would you want to add anything on that regard?
Yeah, if you join, you get a ton. We have a Discord; it's public for all, but we have additional channels for our patrons. And like you said, I was updating everyone on all the kinds of stuff. But at the $5, you can also join the show. Patrons, if anybody wants to come in for the round robin at the end of today's episode, the link is in the Discord. We have a whole lot. There's a lot going on this year. So, but mainly your support allows us to do these things. It let me go to NAMM this year and to report back on it and talk about it during the event with all the Discord stuff. But we're trying to build positive space on the internet to talk synths, music marketing, production with like-minded producers and all that. So if that sounds like something you'd like to be a part of, head to the Discord. The link is in the description. And if you want to help support, Patreon is also there, patreon.com/audionautic.
Very much so. Any words to the patrons, Eon Lake?
Words for the patrons. Thank you.
Yeah.
Love you guys. Thank you.
It is a lot of fun. Increasingly, we can keep talking about these things, and it's just nice. Like someone said, safe space on the internet for this kind of thing. It's nice. We're full of positivity.
Yeah, no one's thrown anything at me yet for
Not
talking about synthesizers or drum machines or samplers.
Exactly. It's also fun to watch Lars get angry at things. Personally, I kind of find that's quite interesting.
Yeah, speaking of getting angry at things, it looks like Just Do It does not actually want to talk about the MPC, but does. But we are going to talk about it because someone somewhere probably does think this is awesome. But let's just talk about it first from a neutral position of what it is, and then we'll hear everybody's opinions on it. So, Curtis, you added this to the docket. I'm going to put the link up on the screen, but do you mind just telling us what it is?
Yeah, so this is the MPC Key 37. It's a standalone synth. So usually when you see something red and key-like, it's a MIDI keyboard coming from a Kai. But this is a standalone synth, 37 key with aftertouch pitch bend modulation wheel, 16 velocity pressure pads, which are RBG backlit, of course they are. There's 8 banks and 4 banks of sounds. These dials are all 360 degrees. Within it itself, you've got a quad core processor with 2 gigabytes of RAM, 32 gigabytes of storage, and so many connections. So you can take this to so many different ways. Yeah. There's MIDI in, there's MIDI out, there's CV out, there's gate jacks, there's Type
How many MIDI outs are there? Does it say?
MIDI outs. It doesn't say how many there are. We have a MIDI. Here we go. There's 1 MIDI in and 1 MIDI out. Essentially, which also acts as a MIDI through, but it has 4 CV gate jacks, a USB A, a USB B, as well as that's power adapter, SD card slot for sounds and sampling, everything you can need. It also does Ableton Link, which is a growing little thing, which means that you can just connect it wirelessly to your Ableton Live, which is a great little feature which I've been experimenting with recently. It's a lot of fun.
Now, just to clarify, I think I thought I heard you say standalone synth. It's a standalone MPC, correct?
Yeah,
like it's a full sampler. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It looks like the ins and outs are very similar to this fella.
Let me focus on you here. Yeah, but you get 4.
You get
like
4
two. Yeah, that's 1.
It's only MIDI ports, but it's got the same number of CV and gate interfaces.
Yeah. Little bummer about the MIDI, but still.
Interesting.
Yeah, so this looks more like it's because I know the MPC put out the bigger keyboard that I think was similar to the Live, but with the keyboard. This seems like the MPC 1 with the keyboard. I don't have any MPCs. They caught my eye before, but I've never had the chance to get one. But it seems similar, especially with the button layout and stuff. It looks a lot like an MPC 1 that they made the screen a little bit bigger, or it looks like it's bigger, and then added a keyboard. 2 gigs of RAM though. Seems a little low.
Well, one of my concerns about the Live, and I've not used it enough yet really to see if it is a problem, is just the resources. Because there's like a CPU monitor you can see on it and a memory monitor, and it's surprising how quickly it climbs up. And I'd have the same concerns about this, really. It's like, how much can you actually wring its neck? So, I mean, 2 gig of RAM doesn't feel like much, does it?
Yeah, that's what Just Do It says as well. My biggest worry is 2 gigs of RAM. The MPC Key 61 has 4 gig. I'm just doing a quick Google search because, again, I don't have the one, but please, if you know in the chat, correct me if I'm wrong. It looks like the MPC one has 2 gigs of RAM. Eon, like, do you know how much RAM is in your MPC Live? You have the Live too, I think, because I like I was saying, I think the 61 key is built off the Live. So yeah, it's a bit of a bummer about the RAM. That seems, especially given that MPC is so much more DAW-like with a lot of plugins and stuff like that. Yeah, it's a little bit of a bummer. I like seeing these key versions though, like they did it with the 61 key as well, because it's cool to see something that's really like its own full workstation, like it's a DAW in a synth, right? Because you have the sampler, you have the keyboard, you have all the built-in plugins. I think, are there even third-party plugins or something like that with the MPCs? Something like that. Now they're adding the stem separation. I mean, there's a lot going on with MPC, so it's cool in that way. But yeah, it seems like they've just not been updating the internals. Like there's always been these rumors of the next MPCs coming and stuff, and then when they do announce it, it's like very similar internals to what's already there, just added feature, like, you know, the MPC key now and stuff. So I'm hoping we see a big refresh to the mainline MPCs, but I don't know. Chat, let us know what you think. Eon Lake, you have an MPC, so I'm curious to hear your take first, and then Curtis, I want to hear from you.
It's one of those things. I'm still trying to gel with it. I keep it separate because it's my the one thing I like about it is it's a self-contained thing. I can take it somewhere. I don't need anything else to make tunes, and it at least does take flash cards, so you know you can expand your storage that way and so on. But as a kind of a workflow and as a DAW, I've not really gelled with it. I can make it work. I can do things on it, but it's not really appealing to me. I mean, it feels like a little DAW to me with a sampler sort of attached, and I only really want to use it as a sampler, to be fair. And you know, if I'm going to sit in front of, you know, pictures on the screen, I'll use Ableton because it's quicker and I don't have to look at the screen as long. So yeah, I don't know. It's just not a thing I've gelled with. I prefer the SP404 just because it's more tactile. You just end up pressing buttons and doing things, and you only really use the screen just to tweak start and end points and so on, and to, you know, change things in menus. And I prefer that workflow for a sampler. And
Yeah,
I mean,
kind
to
of
be
seems
fair,
like
it's not
blessing
just
and the
a
curse.
sampler, it's, you know, a music production system or whatever, and it, you know, it's pretty powerful in that sense. But again, I worry about hardware resources in the box and being able to do a lot of stuff at one time, because that's kind of what I do. And yeah, the fact that it's not that different to actually using a computer when you're on a screen like that, and it's like a DAW-like functionality.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of the problem. And Just Do It adds that the operating system needs a gigabyte. So if you have 2 gigabytes of RAM, you only have 1 really to use on this 37. And then on the 61 with the 4 gigs, you get 3 gigs. Pat says my Octatrack has 80 MB of RAM. Yeah, the difference is that Octatrack is a lot less DAW-like, whereas with the MPC, you're using plugins, you're doing things like that. So it's kind of a different comparison. Yes, you're right, but I feel like with the workflow of the MPC being much more DAW-like with multi plugins and all that type of stuff, you kind of need more RAM to do that sort of thing. So it's not an exact comparison, but I get what you're saying. Curtis, you brought this to the table. Did you bring it because you're excited by it, or was it a bit of a disappointment for you?
I think, to be honest, both. I think for me, I mean, I think it's not something that I personally would go for, but the market, it's not marketed for me, and it's what intrigued me about it is the notion of an introductory standalone synthesizer that's what intrigued me about it. Because if you look at where Akai's main market is, it's beat making. It's not. And beat making is a very different market and different idea to kind of like music production and electronic music kind of releasing, scheduling, etc. It's a different game. Beats they create a different workflow, and they're usually less intensive in terms of like layering, for example. It tends to be something that it's secondary to, then it gets sold off to, say, a rapper or something like that, and therefore it's less intrinsically, but you're not gonna have like 90 tracks in a beat, for example. It just doesn't work that way.
Mm.
You can do, but most beat makers are not doing that. What intrigues me about this, and what gives me a bit of a bump in that regard, is that it's a way it's a way to decentralize beat making and early doors production away from inside the box, which I think is a really good thing. I think the notion, if you're looking to buy your first piece of gear, you're getting into it, you're in your late teens or in your early 20s, you want to get into beat making, you want to get into production, you look to Akai. They're relatively affordable. Everyone knows about them. Yes, they don't have the most exciting specs in the entire world, but they've got a name for themselves in that world. And this allows you to kind of decentralize away from working inside the DAW. It can be hardware. Go on.
To play devil's advocate there, I was thinking, if I had little money, and bearing in mind, we haven't talked about price for this yet. But,
I can tell you right now, I just Googled it. If you don't mind me
yeah,
interjecting,
go for it.
900.
900. I mean, that's laptop and DAW cost, isn't it? And one is much more flexible than the other. I mean, bang for buck, I would say chuck the Akai in the bin and get a laptop with a DAW on it, because
with 32 gigs of RAM.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's your sound sources, it's your mixer, it's your sequencer, it's everything, and it's been designed and honed over decades to be, the best it can be at doing those things, and the most flexible and easy to use tool. I mean, there's just no comparison. I mean, on the one hand, I think to put an MPC in a keyboard, a MIDI keyboard, and integrate all of that, it's got great in and out connectivity as well. Maybe it could be better, but it's got pretty good connectivity. I think it's a great idea for something to do, but at the same time, if you had limited money, I would say just get yourself a laptop. It's the one thing that you could do anything on.
Yeah. I think when you're talking MPC, it's a harder sell in that sense, because MPC is so laptop or DAW-esque. Like it's very similar to a DAW. But I mean, I think there's something to be said though about having something away from the laptop, away from the computer. But and this is kind of like, well, this is cool because it's kind of like a one-stop, because you've got the keyboard, you've got built-in synths, you've got samples, you can do chromatic mode, you can do all that. But yeah, $900, whereas you could even buy the MPC one and plug in probably a MIDI keyboard for a lot cheaper. It's tough. Yeah,
was the
trades.
One of the criticisms of the previous one was just that it didn't do disc streaming. That you couldn't sample you couldn't play a sample from disc, stream it directly from disc. That I don't know if they've addressed that, but I imagine not, because it's probably.
It seems like the internals are pretty much just an MPC one with the keyboard, which, like I was saying earlier, I'm just disappointed. Like, let's see an update to these MPCs. It's been a while, and I think the last, it wasn't even a big update, but what was it? The MPC X SE added like a little bit more of something, but that was like the only big change. I feel like now, as someone who doesn't own any MPCs but watches like stuff about MPCs, it seems like there hasn't been a big update in quite a while, and this just seems like another kind of like it kind of reminds me of video games with like last generation we had the Xbox One and then Xbox One X that just added that was even bigger, I think, but it just added a little bit more, but stayed still very similar in the form and function and stuff.
The spec you wish it was in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. So it's interesting. I mean, it seems like a lot of these things we're talking about, it's like, what's the market for it? And I'm curious what I haven't had a chance to look. I know it was just recently announced, but it seemed like when I was searching for price that this leaked a couple weeks ago or something. But I'm curious what the general consensus is on this. And Chad, I'd love to hear your take on it. Sounds like at least Just Do It isn't sold on it, saying I'd rather buy an iPad plus controller for that amount and run Logic on it. Another Logic user, it sounds like. That's always nice to see. But yeah, it's interesting when you see something that is so DAW-like at prices like this. It's like, yeah, when an iPad costs a little bit, like you can, it's interesting, all the arguments for and against, and I'm just curious to hear what the consensus really is there. So yeah, Curtis, anything else you want to add to it? I know you brought this to the table.
There's obviously it's not as powerful, and there's a lot to be said for, you can buy other things for that money. I still maintain, I think Just Do It says they want to thrive on Old Glory. I think it's a little bit. I'm coming from a world where I teach teenagers and getting into music production in that regard, and they're so inside the computer, and they're so inside like MIDI, and they're so inside that, and they all have laptops. They've all had laptops since they were 9 years old, and this is what gives me hope. Is this notion, like I say, it's this notion of like a tactile response, a real synthesizer coming through, that kind of thing, where it goes, hey, you don't have to have Serum, for example. Because not everything's about Serum. There's a big wide world of stuff out here. Hey, come try it. It's not going to bite you. That's what brings me up.
Yeah, I mean, there's always someone new to production or to anything that may be interested in something like this. I don't think it's necessarily bad specs or anything like that. Price is a little bit high, especially in comparison to like a laptop or something. But if you're trying to break away from the computer but still need a lot of those DAW-like things, I think this is an interesting option, or any MPC is an interesting option to get kind of in that DAW-less sphere, but have the DAW-like, features and things like that. So yeah, it's very interesting. I'm glad you brought it to the table. I mean, I love MPCs. They're always something I've wanted, but just never have. I've always had my eye on like the MPC 2000, or even the one that like something a little older or something. But yeah, also just want to say hello to FCC, who just joined us in the chat. Always happy to have you. And Survey Channel says, just spent $1,500 on a new laptop, spec'd out. No way I'd snag this. Yeah. So there you go. It makes sense, right? Like if you just bought a laptop that does this, but has tons of specs and stuff. Yeah. What's its place? But I mean, it's just interesting that I can definitely see the merits for it, against it, and all that. But good to see something new from Akai. But me personally, I'd really like to see some actual updates.
I get that. I think that's fair enough in that regard.
Yeah. Anything else, Leon Lake, you want to add?
No, but I'm feeling like I was a little negative. And I think if you do,
when are you not, my friend?
You like that sort of thing. I don't
negative, really
hate mine. I like scrolling through stuff with that jog wheel. I like the fact that the controls are context sensitive, so you can quickly get to stuff. It makes sense to put it in a keyboard. It really does. I think if that's your jam, if you're in the market for that, I think it's a good thing. I just think the MPCs in general are perhaps a little bit low on hardware spec to start with, and it would be nice if they addressed all of that, because I don't know, it could be a really, really good product then, rather than just like wish it had this. There's a lot of that around these days, I think, where it's like a great idea, but
I get you. It sounds like hold on one second there, Curtis. 1 second. It sounds like Just Do It does agree with you though, and has a bit to say there with being critical isn't really all negative. And I think they're right there. Like I think it's good to point out when it seems like something doesn't really hit the mark, or isn't right there. Yeah, I agree. We need more honesty in the industry. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely, I'm sure, a market for this, but I think it has missed the mark a little bit to a degree, at least not having updates like that. When did the MPC 1 come out? Because it seems like it's still using that internal build, like 2 gigabytes of RAM. How many years has it been? Like
a couple of years, isn't it?
I think it's good to at least point out where it seems like something is a bit lacking. Curtis, I'm sorry. Carry on, my friend.
All I was going to say is that Akai are always ones for being mediocre. They're always ones for not necessarily in a in a bad way. They're not trying to be the best at anything. They're never trying to be the worst at anything. They're just happy being existing, and they're quite happy just doing their thing and not pushing the envelope of what is, electronic music. They've always, as far as I'm concerned, or as far as I can see, they're happy just being that kind of, we exist consistently. You can trust our gear. We're not going to push the boundaries of existence.
Yeah, I mean, the build quality is usually quite good. I will say that.
Have you started using your MPC a bit more? Because I feel like we've been doing this show for 1 or 2 years now, and
not as much as
it never gelled with you. Like it never gelled with you.
It's even not as portable as an SP404 either, is it?
Yeah.
I just figure
that one has battery, right?
It does, yeah, and a speaker. Although I don't like to use the speaker, it sounds good, but I'd have preferred to save the space and put some headphones on.
Well, the original Live didn't have a speaker, I think, right? That was an addition.
Yeah. It's only the Live 2. But yeah, I don't know. I would have expected to be a bit more inseparable with it. I've considered selling it a few times.
Really?
A amount of money. You could get something else for that.
Get a Chaos Replay, huh?
Yeah, Poly 6.
Yeah, I was gonna say Chaos Replay. That's right there for you. Yeah. Well, Curtis, anything else you want to add before we move to the next topic?
No, let's go across the marketing minute, shall we? Let's go across the marketing minute. It was a bit of a TikTok themed marketing minute.
Oh.
Yeah, lots has been happening with TikTok.
Yeah, for sure. So you put this first. We've got 2 small pieces here, and then you've got a little bit of a thing that you want to kind of push through. So, let's start with Universal. This is a bit week hold. We missed last week, and so this is coming in from the end of January. I mean, a week in, but it's all very valid. So if you want to share the screen up there, here we go. So so the first point of call is that Universal is ending, or did end, its agreement with TikTok from the 31st of January 2024. They have not agreed terms to a new deal, which means that the songs that are licensed or run through Universal have ended, and they will no longer be on TikTok, which is really, I mean, they're huge. They've said that there are 3 critical issues to this in their negotiations in the run-up as to why this has failed, which has been appropriate compensation for artists. We've heard that one before, and songwriters, and protection from AI, and the online safety of TikTok users. Again, very current, very where we're all at where it comes to things. We want to get paid fairly. We want to make sure that we're not going to get pushed out because of AI, and also it's going to be safe, because the barriers to safety on TikTok are not as stringent as some, so they say. But this basically, they report that TikTok proposed paying artists and songwriters at a fraction of the rate compared to other platforms. And this means that Universal would only get a total of about 1% of their total revenue, just not worth it for them. TikTok has also been accused of allowing the platform itself to be flooded with AI generated recordings, sponsoring artist replacement by AI, and attempting to bully Universal into accepting a deal worth less than the previous one. Back in July 2023, TikTok launched its own premium music streaming service without Universal's catalog, instead opting to sign with Warner instead, which is obviously a bit of a faux pas in that regard. And so basically, UMG are coming back with this notion of, we're here to protect the artist's rights, and we're here to support the artists.
They're artists.
In theory.
They're artists. Yeah.
By artists, they mean them.
Yeah, they're artists.
Exactly. So that's what it is one corporation against another corporation, and we're meant to be like happy about that in some regard.
Did you see like TikTok's response too? It did not sound very professional.
What did they say?
I can't remember, but it just felt like a schoolyard fight or something, and it's like, these are two massive, these are 2 massive companies just having this. Smiley Air says, I feel conflicted supporting Universal. Like agrees, both in the chat and on screen. They own a third of the market, though. Are you talking about Universal in terms of music, Smiley Airs? If you don't mind just clarifying. Yeah, I wanted to bring this up. I know we're a little late on it, but I think, like, we're here as independent artists. That's our point. Yeah, Universal is this massive thing. What I want to get to is, the big question is this a win or a loss for independent musicians? Because on TikTok now you have less big label competition, right? That they're all not there. So people needing songs, maybe using others, or just, like it's not on that platform. So does that give you a bigger thing? But also looking at their AI, anything ethical, whatever you want to talk about in terms of TikTok, is it a win or a loss for big companies? That's what I want to know. It looks like Just Do It doesn't even care for TikTok. Why have any content on TikTok anyway? Yeah, that's
Stealing
one
my
thing.
thunder, I'll say.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. It's a growing social media platform, massive. So, I mean, on one hand, if you're trying to get exposure in some way, that's one reason to have it on there, or just something like that. And it also depends what demographic you're going for, right? Because I just saw a thing showing different demographics use different social media. So whoever you're trying to get to, or have your music be heard by, then it might be worth considering. Smiler says it's a loss. I'd be curious to hear though, why you think it's a loss. They say though, Universal are poison in the long run. Eon Lake, I know you're not the biggest fan of TikTok, or maybe you're the biggest fan of TikTok secretly, but what do you think about this? Win, lose? What do you think?
So the first thing that struck me was like Universal Music saying that they're representing, what was it, appropriate remuneration for artists. It's laughable. It's hilarious. It's very funny. Basically, they want more money, and I understand that. And painting it as helping their artists. So, I mean, maybe they'll pass a bit of it on. I don't know. But TikTok, I don't know. Is it just me? But I just feel like TikTok is just another thing that's come along. I feel like it's not going to be here long. I've never really taken it seriously. I'm having nothing to do with it because I have huge concerns about privacy on the platform. So I'm not on it. I'm not going to be on it. I don't care about it. So I say that so that you can interpret what I say with the appropriate amount of bias that I feel. For me, it's not particularly valid. We talked about it recently as well, and we were talking about whether or not, any exposure or positive results you get on TikTok, whether that would actually translate into people finding you on other platforms, actually listening to you again. I really don't think so. I just think it's, the viral pitched up tune of the week, and, next week no one will care, and nobody knows who did the music in the first place anyway. And I could be wrong, and by all means point out to me how wrong I am and what an old fart I am. That's fine, because we're here to learn. This is just my impression. I don't take TikTok seriously. I think it's a privacy nightmare. And the thing that struck me while you were reading out the story was just like, how does this benefit consumers? I mean, I wasn't actually thinking about it from an artist's point of view. I was thinking about it, all this fighting over, we can have that person's music, not that people's music. We've got a third of the market, but not that massive chunk over there. I just think, who as a consumer wants to be picking through all these different service providers and the niche that they offer and the content that they have, this constant fragmentation of, art and media into smaller and smaller bits? I don't care. I'd rather just pay one thing and have the lot. I'm not interested in these companies going toe to toe and so on. I don't think it benefits the consumer. I mean, I suppose it does in the sense that it's competition, right? But while they're still competing and it's that fractional and so on, I don't see that it really benefits anyone. Why not just go to Spotify, Apple Music, one of the bigger players, and, let them jog on with it? How many different platforms do we need anyway, really?
Yeah, and with new ones like Threads and Blue Sky and all that. Interesting.
Yeah, you've got to offer something new, haven't you?
Yeah. Well, that's what's interesting. We have a bit more before we go, but talking about offering something new, TikTok is making kind of a big change. We'll get there in a second, but they're claiming to be boosting horizontal videos. It's very strange. But I found the response. I can share it in a second. Yeah, I found TikTok's response. I want to read it, but Curtis, what do you think about all this?
if I'm going to be frank, it bores me. In that, like, it's in that it proves to me and to myself anyway, the trip that I've been on recently, the only place that I can really have any sort of faith in is my Bandcamp page and the Audionautic Discord community, and that's it, and that's fine, and I'm cool with that. Like, social media, again, to echo what Ian said, the to necessarily go from social media to consumer that's not a proven concept. It can work, but it's, I've been doing it for a while and it doesn't always work that way, and it's just people with paper and suits fighting amongst each other, and the rest of us just like, well, I'm just gonna go over here and do my thing. Like, it just doesn't serve anyone other than themselves. And at that point, I just kind of start switching off from it in that regard. I just kind of go, well, I'm just going to do me, and I'm just going to, instead of putting myself out into the world on a grand scale, I'm going to focus on the 1,000 true fans who I can interact with directly. And yes, obviously you need social media in order to get that done to a degree, but again, you don't need to be everywhere. You don't need to be everywhere and do everything all the time. And TikTok has never been anything that has been particularly of interest to me. I'm on there. I think I do the Audionautic and tag Curtis. Can't remember the last time I did a TikTok for Curtis. And yeah, it's there and it's existing, and it's big people fighting in rooms with suits and with cigars. And I'm just like, no, I'm just going to carry on doing me.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing about TikTok. I want to read that statement in a second, but I just want to throw my 2 cents. I feel like TikTok for our music area, like ambient, electronic and stuff, it doesn't really serve much purpose. I post so I make shorts for my YouTube, right? YouTube's my main thing when it comes to my dollar stuff and all that. So there's a lot of like, quote, educational content where I'm breaking down doing specific things on hardware and things like that. So I'll post those and they do all right, but I've never even seen a translation of getting those people from TikTok over to the YouTube, right? So like, what is the point of TikTok? You can't link external website until you have a certain number of followers, so you can't really get people to, hey, check out my Spotify, right? New song, check out my Bandcamp. Like, so what is the point there in growing besides just getting vanity numbers and things? It doesn't seem like it has much place beyond just that like viral chasing. But is there much point to that with the type of music we make? Not really. And even if there was, like, is it worth it? No, definitely not that. So it's this strange thing where it's like, why even be on there? Kind of like, well, you both have said that to a degree. It's weird. I mean, I don't think it's bad to have a presence there per se. Like, I put my stuff on there, but it's not my focus. I literally just post, disregard, right? And the next time I go to post, I'll check if there's any comments and respond. But it doesn't feel like there's any community to TikTok. And now, sure, I'm not probably using it the right way. I never go on it. I'm not really interacting. But even when you do, it just doesn't feel like, even with Instagram, it feels like you're building community. There's more in terms of the comments and things like that. Twitter, or well, X is kind of gone now, whatever. But Threads, Blue Sky, like, it feels much more communal. Discord, especially,
social
our
media
Discord,
without the social.
Yeah, exactly. To me, it just feels like very isolating because TikTok seems to be just chasing the viral, right? Like, everything's just post because you're getting everything you hear about TikTok is beyond there because you get a lot of exposure, right? Which now may not even be a thing when we talk about that next topic. But lastly, I just want to read this response. Curtis, can you share the screen I posted there?
Bring that up, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so this is their response. Newsroom.tiktok.com. So it's their official one. It is sad and disappointing that Universal Music Group has put their own greed above the interests of their artists and songwriters. Despite Universal's false narrative and rhetoric, the fact is they have chosen to walk away from the powerful support of a platform with well over 1 billion users that serves as a free promotional and discovery vehicle for their talent. TikTok has been able to reach artist-first agreements with every other label and publisher. Clearly, Universal's self-serving actions are not in the best interest of artists, songwriters, and fans. That's what I was saying. It was worth reading because it's pretty
It's an
scathing.
opinion.
It's pretty scathing, yeah, and very opinionated.
But is that true, though? I mean, is it a brilliant platform for their artists? I mean, you could also argue that their artists don't need that platform. There are
Yeah.
other platforms, and there are artists who are already successful. And everything that we were just saying about TikTok. I mean, do you know, people on TikTok care who wrote the music?
No.
Yeah.
Are they interested? Are they even there
All
for
good
music?
points.
Funny
All good
though.
points.
There's
Let
a
me just read a
response.
little bit of the chat. Ross has something interesting. The music industry continues to make ungodly money, and they hide all the revenue from the artists while they funnel it to themselves in other ways. Universal is one of the worst at it. Smiling Air says, "Who knew we'd miss Apple Store days?" Yeah.
Money there.
Yeah. So there's a bit more chat. We're just running short on time. I want to cover this last bit before we go, but keep posting. We'll share when we can. I just want to move over to this last bit because this is interesting. So Curtis, I think you have it queued up, correct? Is that what your
Yeah, that's what that
screen share
it's
is?
not the same one, but the other one's a Washington Post, which we can't see because of a paywall. But it's the same story. It's the same story. It's all
Yeah,
funny.
so I saw this a couple days ago, I think on Threads or something. Someone was saying, I got this notification when I was trying to post to TikTok that they're telling you will boost your posts if you do horizontal content. So here's the article. I didn't even see this section. Testing 30-minute videos and boosting horizontal content as it tries to rival YouTube. Curtis, you mind giving a little more detail? And then I got a question for you all I want to ask.
Yeah, so they'll be sent for a certain amount of creators. They will be boosted for 72 hours after publishing. They're pushing towards long form horizontal content, and like you say, to compete with like YouTube and Netflix. And they are going for as far as 37. Sorry, going for
You got
30
37
minutes.
keys stuck in your mind.
I've got because we've got 7 people watching. I
Oh, I thought you were gonna say the MPC 37, right? You know.
But yeah, they've got they're pushing for even as far as 30-minute videos in that regard. A bit again, Twitter have done this just before Christmas as well. Some basically in result of this, some creators feel resentful of the added workload required for producing long form horizontal content and question TikTok's evolving identity.
Turn your phone
They
around 90 degrees.
I know. What I like is the fact that you got influencers who grew up on TikTok now, who are going to the idea of, oh, suddenly I have to make a 30-minute video when like YouTubers spend hours and years
Yeah.
producing long form content, and now all of a sudden people on TikTok are like, no, I won't do that. No. So work shy, basically. But my point is, yes, they're boosting. They want you to go horizontal. They want you to have longer form videos, and they are actively pushing that forward, and they're going to keep doing that from now on.
Yeah, this is so fascinating to me. And sorry, this might be like a question dump, but I have a few things I want to point out and bring up and just talk with everybody about this. So, can a platform like this succeed doing such a massive pivot? Because TikTok is known for its short form to the point where every other social media platform tried to copy and add some form of short form. YouTube, like I think it was Smiling Air says, revenge for YouTube doing shorts, all that. Like, I guess Twitter and X never really did, but it was always kind of like short. You get 42 seconds, I guess, but it's not necessarily vertical. Instagram pushed the reels. Like, everyone was trying to compete with this because of what I was saying earlier, where the exposure was just crazy on TikTok. Now we're seeing TikTok saying, we're not going to give you that exposure unless you do these long form horizontal videos. Very interesting there. And then the other thing, it seems like they're forcing this transition, but will it work? Like, is that what the audience who came to TikTok for vertical videos, that's great for, and I say great in quotes, doom scrolling on mobile, things like that, like, will it translate to these horizontal videos they're pushing? And then the last thing I want to add, just that I thought of this right when Curtis was talking about creators complaining about long form and things like that, and just TikTok trying to compete now with YouTube and Netflix. What does this mean about short form in general? Like, does this mean the experiment of short form content is a failure, or what? Because now we're seeing the the beginner of this whole push for vertical short form video that changes the transition every 1 second, do this and that, like the ADD video format is saying, no, we want to do long form. We want to do horizontal videos, like proper 16:9. We want to do that. We want to do this. Interesting, just very interesting. Like, what does this say? Because YouTube is still going hard with YouTube Shorts. Instagram has dropped the Reels algorithm. So like we talk always about the changing landscape in streaming with all the stuff that's happened with Spotify, but it's like, look at this now in real time. We're seeing like the biggest short form like platform now being, no, we want to switch to long form horizontal. So sorry, that's a lot of questions, I know, but it's just like kind of stream of conscious and my thoughts as we go to this. Curtis, let's start with you. What do you think?
I think they're just trying to capture as much of the market as they can. Really, they'll probably still keep doing short form. People still keep making short form because it requires little effort. There are some people who prefer long form, making long form, and there are some people who prefer consuming long form. Like they'll just do both, and they're just trying to monopolize. And I've got an analogy which I can't use on air, but like they're just basically trying to colonize everything and just take it for themselves. And you know, again, as Jack would always say, if you've got a choice, why not both? So they're just trying to corner as many people as possible. Now, this is the continuous race to the bottom. So you talk about the race to the bottom that we saw when everyone switched to long form, right? Now they're all copying TikTok, so they're just trying to race to the bottom. They're all the same bloody thing, right? This is just going the other way. It's just, they've cornered that market. They're going to do that. Oh, okay. A couple of years later, we're going to go do this, and a couple of years they'll go do the same thing. It's just going to keep toing and froing until the internet just shuts down, essentially.
Yeah, interesting. We've got Just Do It says mobile is going to die. VR AR is going to take over. That's interesting. I know Apple just put out the new, what is it, Vision Pro?
Yeah,
I'm totally
Apple
blanking
Vision.
on the name. Interesting. I mean, it's a bit pricey, so we'll have to see. VR and has been out for a while with all the VR headsets and stuff, and it never seemed to catch on, at least with gaming. So I'd love to see VR and AR come, but it just, at least from what I've seen, hasn't ever caught on seemingly yet. But I'll be curious if it does. That's an interesting take, though. Just
like
do it.
Apple. Wait, sorry. It does. I didn't mean to interrupt. It does seem
No,
like
go for it.
Apple's new world is a bit of a step up. It
Yeah, it
feels and it
does.
looks
It
as
does.
though-
It does. It's just, I think we need to see
Yeah.
the price go down before, or other options in price before we see that become like to take over mobile. But yeah, I mean, with what's coming, it's highly possible. I mean, everything is always, we're always getting new technology that pushes the boundaries, and then we move to those things, right? I mean, before there weren't cell phones, then there were cell phones, and then they made smaller and smaller cell phones, and then now they keep getting bigger because we put all the smartphone stuff in it. Which is interesting. And I think too, Smiling Air says short form will never go away. Each generation will have its own platform for it, though. Next generation will look at TikTok the way we do about MySpace. Yeah, I just think what's interesting here is TikTok's trying to not do short form now. Like that's what's so fascinating to me, is they're literally saying the boost we used to give short form, we're going to give to horizontal long form video. So it's like they themselves want to get out of short form, it sounds like, from everything this is doing. Now, maybe that's conjecture, whatever have you, but that certainly seems like what they're doing, giving this push. And it's just fascinating. And maybe they're trying to be like YouTube, where there's both, but YouTube has its issues trying to do shorts and long form, because the algorithms are so different. And if you get subscribers who watch for shorts, they're most likely not going to watch your long forms. And YouTube keeps trying to experiment with connecting the two. The most recent experiment they did, they added in the middle of a short, you can link a video, like a long form piece of content. The crossover to that, even if you put arrows or make a bit at the end of the short saying, hey, check out the full video here, is like 1%, if that, if you're lucky, of getting someone from the short to the long form. So that's problematic.
Issue, right?
Go ahead, Ian.
I just agreeing. I think that's the issue, is like having one and the other, and you're operating two different algorithms that are, like you say, very different. And if YouTube can't get it nailed, who is going to? They've got some resources, and then you've got the cross-pollination of the two. You've got to handle that, which is almost like running a third algorithm, or maybe it's actually difficult. As far as all the VR AR is concerned, I mean, the technology might be there, but I mean, good luck not getting mugged in the street wearing stuff like that. If
that's a very optimistic viewpoint of the world there, Ian. Like, thank you for that.
You say
you're going to get stabbed in the street for Rolex. If you want to walk around with VR goggles on, you be my guest. I think seriously, I don't think crime will be away. You'd be using stuff like that at home, sure, but I
Mm.
don't know necessarily that you'd be wearing it all the time. But
Mm.
as far as the change in their pitch and doing a bit of an Instagram as far as what their platform is and what it caters for, it just seems silly, really. It's almost like everybody has realized that there is a market for all these different forms of content and that various people want to see different things, and now they're all scrabbling to do it. And is it more of just like the homogenization of these platforms, and they're all just going to become one and almost give up their differentiating factors? Because it's what it seems like, particularly for TikTok, really, because like you say, they really did put themselves into a corner, which worked great up to a point. But see, this is the thing about companies, isn't it? You know, you start off small, you become successful, you have your USP, you do very, very well. And once you have a company of a certain size and you've got a board and you've got shareholders and everything, it's really got to keep growing, got to keep growing, keep growing, keep growing. And there could just be like a finite size for this sort of thing. And the only thing you can do after a certain point to make more money is to do something different. And that's when you stop looking different and you start looking like your competitors.
This just dawned on me because again, I only saw the news about this recently, but you talking about trying to get into other markets and stuff, and then what Ross said about YouTube does fine putting ads all over the shorts. YouTube shorts pay almost nothing. 1,000 views on a short will get you about 10 cents. 1,000 views on a full long form video, depending on how many ads you're placing, and the RPM and CPM, cost per mil is what it's called, but cost per thousand, and I think it's revenue per thousand. You're looking on a low end, you're talking $2 to $5, and on a higher end RPM and CPM, you're looking at 10 to maybe 20 for 1,000 views on a long form, but a short is 10 cents. So there's a drastic difference in terms of pay, right? I'm thinking just all of this got my brain thinking TikTok, more ad revenue, right? Because if you have a 30-minute video that's horizontal that you can place an ad every 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, a lot more ad revenue that you're talking about for the creator if they're getting ad revenue, but also for TikTok itself. Very interesting thing there. Thanks for bringing that to my mind, Ian. Like that's another thing I didn't even think of. But yeah, we're talking ad revenue. Yeah,
I think there's something on that as well.
It's almost like yeah. Carry on, mate. Go on.
No, I was just in that frame of okay. Let's look at this from a biological perspective, right? What is it that processes that short form content? What's driving that market? And that is dopamine hits, right? The TikTok algorithm is particularly good and particularly aggressive on showing you content which are going to give you those dopamine hits, so you just keep on scrolling. And that is particularly good. That Instagram's all right, but TikTok are lethal in that regard. But you can't do that in long form. You can't keep that dopamine rush through a 30-minute video. To engage into a 30-minute video, you have to actually be interested in it, and you have to actually sit and think, and you have to actually, pay attention, engage with it, right? I wonder, this is purely conjecture, but it's just got me thinking about ad revenue. Okay, sure, there might be more ad revenue if you can put them in, say, every 10 minutes or so, but they've bred this generation of people who don't have the attention span to sit and watch a 30-minute video.
You've answered my first question. Yeah, like, can they transition to this? Right, their whole thing is short form. It's
well, that's the thing. The other thing to remember is what we're talking about here is it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the media itself. We're talking about attention farming. That's all this is, right? And you can do that one of two ways. You can either have a longer subject that interests people that they'll sit and watch, or you can have short things keeping them interested because it's changing every 30 seconds, and anything in between. And they're all trying varying amounts of each. And the purpose is just to attention farm and push ads at you. I mean, what the content is, it could be anything. It really doesn't matter as long as you're paying attention and seeing ads.
And they tell you what you want.
It's a mistake to look at it from an artistic point of view or or anything. It's just literally what makes the most money.
Yep. Yeah, and 30
Mhm.
minutes of ads is going to make a lot more if you get people watching compared to 1 minute where the ad is in between.
Mm.
Interesting times, but yeah, that's I wanted to bring that up for that little bit of chat to go on. Just Do It has a couple, so I'll read through it. But this is an interesting point, and I think they've got a good point. I just want to play slight devil's advocate at the end, but the price will go down regarding the VR, but it's not really that expensive either when you think about what it could replace in time. Definitely. And like they say, we're already paying thousands for our mobiles, TVs, displays. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense there. Those things will get a lot smaller in 5 to 10 years. And lastly, I remember being the first at school with the mobile. Everyone thought I was stupid, and the teachers thought I was a dealer. I wasn't. 2 years later, the mobile was mainstream. Yeah, and I hope we see that with this. It looks really cool. The issue is what my concern is with like the price as it is right now, and just being so new is it needs demand, right? Like there needs to be apps, products, things coming out that justify its usage, and I hope we see that. But if not, then it's like while awesome, I worry that it wouldn't necessarily translate into something. I hope we see it though. That it looks really cool. And like they said about with mobile, like everything starts new, and there's a lot of people that think it's not worth it or this and that, but then it quickly becomes essential. And I hope we see that. It looks really cool. I just like want to see more. And I'm not super into the Apple VR yet. I haven't really checked it out, but just from what I've seen of other VRs, it's like it's there, and we're seeing more and more. And now stuff's like I think Apple will hopefully prod everything to start like rebooting and going further, but it kind of seemed to stall out there for a bit, at least in like the video game industry. And so I hope we see it really come and be what potential it could be. Like it seems like there's a lot of potential there. We just need to see the things product being created for it that drives the demand.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole notion of it is a bit dystopian to me, but in a heartbeat, if Ableton had Ableton VR,
I saw someone with like
that.
Logic. I think with the Apple with using Logic. I mean, there's so much awesome idea to it. Yeah, and yeah, Just Do It. It will be up to the developers for sure. Yeah, exactly. That's that, and I hope we see. I'm not trying to be down on it. I think like it looks awesome. Oh, Moog has an app. They said, oh, that's cool. Yeah, I swear I saw something like somebody using Logic or something, but maybe it was a mock-up. But I mean, it could be really cool. So yeah, we'll see. Yeah,
I get that. It's exciting times. I hope that just with all this to-in and throw-in and trying to capture a market, eventually it will just collapse on itself like a neutron star, and the entirety of social media would just cease to exist, and it would just be Discord, and it would just be Bandcamp. That's all I want. I'm happy with that. I can live with that.
Very specific, but yeah, keep them crossed for you.
It's all about my own myopic experience online. That's all it's about.
I think there actually is. I think there actually might be Logic Pro and Vision Pro or something. I don't know. Anyways, we can dream, right? Like, how cool would that be?
That'd be fun. Very fun. So yeah, that is everything that I've got to say about that. Is there anything more from you, gentlemen?
No, I think that's it. I think just before we'll go, we'll talk a little bit about what we're up to this week. And chat, feel free to chime in what you've got going on during the week, music-wise, anything like that. But Curtis, what do you have going on?
It's a very good question. I don't know if you can tell. I'm knackered. I'm going to be taking it chill. I think I've been pushing it so hard over the last couple of weeks, and I think I just need to take a chill pill. I've got a collab that I need to finish, so I think I'll do that. I've set myself the deadline of finishing that by Saturday, so I need to finish that off. But I'm gonna take it easy. Obviously, Intervoidal comes out next week, so I need to start kind of putting all the promo stuff together. So it's a lot more kind of video editing and taking it chill as opposed to smashing the DAW. I think that's where I'm at.
Smashing the DAW.
What about you, bro?
Let's see. I'm still getting over this sickness. This is one of the worst flus I've ever had. It was terrible, but I figured it was going to happen because dealing with a newborn, not sleeping much, lots of work the last couple of weeks. I was like, I know I'm going to get sick, and man, did I get sick. But other than that, resting up a little bit. But I've got my NAMM 24 video out tomorrow where I talk about all the hardware I saw, and then what's it called? I'm sample flipping all the random sounds that I got. So yeah. So that's what I'll be doing. Eon Lake, what have you got going on?
What am I doing? I'm messing around over here. I was talking to Curtis about it on our Star stream on Sunday, because I've just got a new MIDI box that clocks everything. So I'm running that. That's telling Ableton when to start and stop and everything. And I've got a new mixer as well, because my old one blew up. Just my little tiny mixer. So I've got a Mackie. I thought you'd appreciate that. Sunwalker 10 input one. So that's going to be my live mixer for when I'm playing live. So just getting used to using that and running things through it, and having my my effects plugged in as sends and bringing stuff into it. I'm still getting used to it. It's a bit different to the other ones. So I'm messing around with that, but in the same time, I'm using it to do a load of overdubs with, burnt in effects, just recording audio and manipulating audio, because I'm more about that at the moment. I've had a real habit in the past of running everything MIDI so that you can keep fiddling around with it, and all the synths are playing via MIDI, and I just bounce it out. But nowadays, I'm trying to design a bit more and record audio and commit and see where that gets me. So that's what I'm doing.
Nice. There you go. A couple bits in the chat. I did test multiple times. It was negative every time, so it was the flu. It was not. I don't know if I can say the word because YouTube is weird, but it wasn't the pandemic related thing. But Just Do It says that and that is how they ended up on the podcast. So if you're feeling sick, if you're sick, I'm sorry to hear that. That's a bummer, but we're happy to have you here. Hopefully we'll see you next week. We go live every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific. And if you want to check out, as Pat was asking, what stream do we have on Sunday? That's our patron exclusive Star Stream Hangouts. We do those. If you want to join, Patreon link is in the description. Discord is for everyone, so be sure if you want to hang out with all of us and talk about all this gear and things like that. Discord link is also there in the description. We'd love to see you over there. Curtis, anything you want to add before we go? I saw your hand go up like you had something to say.
Yeah, just the next Star stream. We've already put it in the diary, and we're going to do a job of announcing it a lot longer. 25th this month is the next Star stream. If you want to hop on over to that, or put that in your calendar. Sunday the 25th at 11 a.m. Pacific.
Oh,
same time as this.
Yeah, same time as this. Oh, that's bummer. Just Do It says that they're not sick, but Nick from Sonic State is sick. That is a bummer. Yeah, sorry to hear that.
That's a shame.
Hopefully it gets better soon. Yeah, I didn't get to see them at NAMM. I was hoping to say hi, but I didn't get to see them. But yeah, hopefully he gets better soon. But anyways, anything else you want to add before we go, Eon Lake?
I'm good. Thanks for joining us, anyone who did, in any form.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will be back next week, Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific. And until then, what is the that you look like
you're
gonna be
the 100th
That's
episode.
right. Yeah, this is I'm still getting better. Yeah, it's gonna be our 100th episode. Yeah, so awesome. And Just Do It. Thanks for subscribing. We'll see you next week then. And yeah, we'll be celebrating our 100th episode. I think Lars owes us a super massive track, so I gotta ask him about that. Our patron Lars, that was the challenge. But yeah, if there's anything you want to see for the 100th episode, hit us up. Looks like Just Do It as a question, so I'm stalling for time. But FCC says thanks, guys. Great as always. Oh yeah, this is an important question. What's the name of the cat? Yeah,
this is Steve.
That's Steve.
Yeah, he's always happy. Usually when he's hungry.
Sometimes, occasionally see Tina, but Steve tends to live on the mainstay there. Yeah,
yeah.
Likes to walk over everything while Curtis is talking.
Just always. Instantly judge. Yeah, always.
Yeah. Well, for more Steve, join us on Wednesday. Yeah, we always got Steve coming in, especially when he doesn't get fed yet. He's a little grumpy, but when he's fed, he's very happy and just sitting there. But yeah, much obliged for tuning in, and we will see you next week.